has served Leimert Park and surrounding communities, empowering tomorrow's leaders and changing lives. Parkside EDC has awarded over $400,000 in college scholarships while sharing economic principles of the Big Five of money with students and their families. Parkside EDC partners with organizations like the Brotherhood Crusade to assure our youth have the financial acumen to succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting a movement of people. It's like we dancing to the ministry of, it's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the point where the business is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. With you and God in time, I best align.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it.
How can I be a better father, son, a better...
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580, live from Los Angeles, where it is, 72 and sunny? At least it feels that way. You're listening to A More Perfect Union right here on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm your host and White House correspondent here in the flesh. You might notice for the people who are streaming live on YouTube, that I'm wearing this brown sweatshirt right here. I just had a chance to visit with some of the students at Brown University. I did a book talk talking about my my best-selling book, Because of All of You, Kamala, the Motherland, and Me. I want to give a special shout out. A special shout out to all the folks over at Brown University, specifically the Iota Alpha chapter of AKA Sorority Incorporated, and their chapter advisor, Joy Danielle Whitehead, the Brown University Center for Student of Color, and its mission-driven director, Dr. Vincent T. Harris, for a very generous invitation to go out and chat with these young, extraordinary leaders in Providence, Rhode Island. I had a great time. If you want to check out some of the fun photos, you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. DQ, DRNIIQ, and you can check those out. Speaking of checking things out, we are T-minus 1 day from our big day in Altadena. This Wednesday, April 16th, is day 100 since the wildfires erupted in Altadena. We're asking you to join us this week for our live national broadcast. We're broadcasting the KBLA 1580 Town Hall as we commemorate this fateful day as we celebrate the resilience of the Altadenians and embrace this beloved Black community. We're also going to be giving away air purifiers and $100 gift cards to survivors. So please come join us tomorrow, Wednesday, April 16th from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific time for our town hall, the Altadena Eat and Fire 100 Days and Counting. This event is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com, where you'll find all the pertinent details about the town hall. We thank you in advance for being a part of this, for being in community with us. All right, now it's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, if you have any family members, as I do, that are on Social Security, and on Social Security, not as an entitlement program, but on Social Security because they earned it, because they paid into it, then you want to know this. Social Security is implementing anti-fraud measures for telephone scams. This is what you need to know. All Social Security claims made over the telephone will be subject to anti-fraud checks moving forward. That's what the agency confirmed on April 14th. The implementation of the security measures come weeks after the Social Security Administration received backlash for proposing cuts to phone services, requiring vulnerable Americans to make the trek to a local Social Security Administration office if they were unable for any reason to verify their identity online. The agency now allows individuals to complete all claim types via telephone, supported by new anti-fraud capabilities designed to protect beneficiaries and streamline the customer experience. Now, here's what you should know about the anti-fraud measures, including additional details about when these security checks begin. Again, anti-fraud checks for telephone claims began on April 14th. The agency also noted that they would flag, quote, claims that have fraud risk indicators. Users of the phone service will only have to come in person if they're flagged by our anti-fraud systems. That's what the Social Security folks wrote on a post on X on April 9th. They went on to say that they are surging personnel to the phone lines to better assist anyone who needs help. And so there you have it. So if you're having any issues with your Social Security, go ahead and pick up that phone. And if you're having some trouble, let us know, and we'll be sure to amplify that. Moving along, another important program that we pay into. A lot of people like to talk about it like an entitlement. I really don't like that term, entitlement. Talking about Medicaid. States are pushing Medicaid work rules, but few programs help enrollees actually find jobs. This is the case. Republicans in Congress in several states, including Ohio, Iowa, and Montana, they're pushing to implement these work requirements for non-disabled adults, arguing that a mandate would encourage enrollees to find jobs. Now, it's important to note for Republicans pushing to require Medicaid enrollees to work, there are lots of stories out there that highlight that there are supports that could be held up as evidence that government health coverage can help people find employment and ultimately reduce their need for public assistance. But opponents, they point out that most Medicaid recipients, they already have jobs. This idea, though, if we just, require them to have jobs, a lot of them already have jobs. And they say such a mandate would only kick eligible people off Medicaid rather than improve their economic prospects. How's this for numbers? Nearly 2/3 of Medicaid enrollees work. You would know that listening to all this chatter on social media coming out of the mouths of conservative standard bearers. Nearly 2/3 of Medicaid enrollees, they work, with most of the rest acting as caregivers, going to school, or unable to hold a job due to disability or illness. And that's according to KFF, which is a health information nonprofit that does health news. So things are about to get funky. Fasten your seatbelt. In this attempt to pass the spending bill, which it's been widely reported could have very devastating cuts on programs like Medicaid. I've heard a conservative estimate of $880 billion. I've heard another estimate of $1.5 trillion. You know what that means? It means we're going to feel that. That's what that means. Moving along, I'm not sure if you all have been following this story. I certainly have been following it. ABC News reporting that a judge in the Abrego Garcia case blasts the Department of Justice in action and orders officials to testify under oath. The federal judge overseeing the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia took Justice Department attorneys to task over their inaction, ordering government officials to testify under oath in order to resolve Abrego Garcia's wrongful detention, saying, quotes, "The Supreme Court has spoken," and in which officials are put under, they'll be put under oath and ordered to apply the law to the facts. The judge told the Justice Department lawyers that she was ordering expedited discovery, specifically to determine whether they are fighting the court order, whether they intend to abide by the court orders. This judge ain't playing around. She went on to say, you made your jurisdictional arguments, you made your venue arguments, you made your arguments on the merits, and you lost. This is now about the scope of the remedy. And to help us understand this and more when we come forward, I'm really looking forward to being in conversation with my friend, our friend, and frequent contributor to A More Perfect Union, Alan Orr. He is founder of the DC-based Orr Immigration Law Firm, and he is here to help us make this make sense. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Alan Orr when we come forward.
about your timeshare and all of your options for cancellation.
Call for your free info kit, 800-511-2112. That's 800-511-2112. 800-511-2112.
Hit me!
National news, the consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and really delighted to welcome back to the show my friend, our friend, our expert, our in-house expert on all things immigration, Alan Orr. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And so shortly before we went on air, ABC News reporting that the judge in the Abrego Garcia case really blasting the Department of Justice for their inaction and ordering those officials to testify under oath. Talk to us about how serious is that? How much hot water are they in with this judge?
I mean, I think not just with this judge, but with everything. So, one of the things that happened today in history, besides it being Jackie Robinson Day, so salute to the history of Jackie Robinson, is also today is the day that the Titanic hit the iceberg. And I am hopeful in the legal profession that this is the day that the Trump administration finally finds something to slow down all these things that they're doing unlawfully in immigration and sort of not having due process in these cases. The main concern is that there was a 9-0 ruling from the Supreme Court, which is unheard of in this administration, right? I mean, things that are 9-0 just don't really happen. It's generally 5-4 or some 4-5, something of that nature, or 3-6, but not a 9-0 sort of declaration from the Supreme Court saying all people who are being removed from this country are entitled to due process and you should facilitate the return of this individual. And then the president, with the president of El Salvador, said, there's nothing we can do. And there's been a long time in which they were able to take action and they took no action. So I think what's important first is to have a conversation of why this is important, because if it means no due process for him, it means no due process for anyone. It also means if you happen to be removed from this country and you're Black and you're of Jamaican descent or any other descent and you're in some foreign country, they're not going to do anything to get you back. So that's the far extremities, which was also echoed in some of the comments from the Supreme Court. Yes, go ahead.
So, Alan, I just want to double click on that a little bit because, I shared this on air yesterday, and I think it's worth noting again. There are some people out there that say, okay, yeah, this is terrible. And they're seeing these cases of folks being detained and deported without any due process. We saw footage of the student at Tufts University who was literally snatched from off the street with folks in masks, put in unmarked cars, and shipped away to another state. We're seeing video of this. We're seeing pictures of more and more and more of this. What's your message to folks out there that haven't quite made that connection? That when they don't get their due process, we all don't get our due process, and we don't want to live in a country where due process is subject to whoever is in power.
Yeah, I think, well, this is the moment, the wake-up call, other than I can't give it to them until they're already in the airway of having the problem. But in addition to that, today and yesterday, one of the things that was sort of leaked from the conversation with the president, and also the president reaffirmed this morning, I think on Fox News in an interview, was he also plans to remove Americans to these detention camps, which Americans don't follow under immigration law, so they can't be deported. So I don't know how he's going to move the worst of Americans to these detention facilities. But let's look at two different pictures here, because one is the picture about the case individual that he's accused of being in a gang. That's one thing. What you were talking about were students who are not accused of being a gang. Students who are going to some of the greatest institutions that we have in this country, who are paying full freight for their education, who might have been involved in a protest. And we're also seeing students now who have DUI, who might have such a thing as one interaction with the DUI, which DUIs are very serious. It only takes two of them to have you removed from the country, because there's a gradual scale for that. But arrest, shoplifting, all the small things in life are adding up. As long as political dissertation is added up to over 1,000 students being removed from the country. And so what that does is it means that foreign students no longer will come to this country. And people say, oh, great, whatever. Well, that's money. And to our economy, that's about $43 billion across the United States from student investments. So that's not a good thing. And also, some of those students are some of the drivers that lead to upscaling of American students here by being professors or doing internally for their countries, maybe ahead in coding, their countries maybe ahead in science. So there's an exchange that we're cutting ourselves off from. And also those students are going to choose to go study in other places. And when they study in other places, the ingenuity that comes from that are going to be developments in those countries. Almost a little over half, I believe almost close to 75% of the Nobel Prizes the United States has won in the last 20 years has been from people who are foreign born, who migrated to the United States and participated in some kind of form of education and development within this country that led to them getting a civil rights in mathematics or science or business. And removing ourselves from having that type of a capacity around us is problematic. Specifically to Black people, in the Mr. Garcia's case, because he had no due process, they said he was a gang member. He had already been through a process in 2019 that said he wasn't a gang member. Is the mere fact they said he was a gang member and all the other 250 some odd individuals that they removed from the United States, they just claimed it without going through a court procedure proving that they were actually gang members. So therefore, that applies to all types of people, including Black people. You look like you have gang affiliation because you have on a certain sweater, a certain shirt. I mean, in this case, there were tattoos. So think about all the tattoos that some African-American people have that are similar to what the Venezuelans might have had. It might be a crown. It might be a tiger. It might be a soccer ball. Those are things that led to deportation of other individuals or claiming that they were associated with gangs. So that's one of the largest extrapolations that could happen to us. I mean, we already know from New York with the stop and frisk, who stop and frisk applied to. So when all of this sort of policing and over-policing and determining who's a citizenship is problematic for us in general as a people, because it just means that you're going to be asked more questions. For example, as we also know, that went into effect as of last week was the Alien Registration Act, which means that if you're an immigrant in this country and you're undocumented, the government is telling you now, you have to register with us, tell us your name, your phone number, where you are, or you can be fined. And if you're caught, you will be automatically deported. Well, of course, if you feed all of the information to the government, they could potentially come and deport you too. So it's a really catch-22 for individuals to say a new kind of show me your papers. Prove to me that you're registered if you're undocumented. Prove to me that you don't need to register if you are documented, along with the SAVE Act, right? Make sure you have some kind of documentation to prove to me that you can vote, along with real ID. Prove to me that you're able to fly in this country by having this real ID or getting to any government building, but you need a passport, right? And passports aren't free.
And a big part of this is it's important that we note that there's a constant moving of the goalposts. It is they're designing this to move the goalposts. And so you'll never have the right papers. It'll never be enough because they'll just move the goalposts. You know, Alan, you are the right person to ask this question to. My name is Nii-Quartelai Quartey. I have a foreign name. I also am an American citizen. I have a passport, married, own a home here, the whole shebang. How safe am I from some rogue member of the Department of Homeland Security accosting me or possibly snatching me up off of a street corner?
I don't think you're far from it just because of the name simulation, and your parents also, one of your parents I know for sure is foreign born, and your international travel. And so what we've just seen in Boston, I believe, it was an American couple that was detained for 5 hours. And now they're suing the government because they held them for 5 hours without asking them for documentations. We also saw a lawyer who represented individuals who were involved in the protest be detained for 2 hours in the Miami, I think it was the Miami airport, in which they were trying to take his phone, trying to get his contacts. And he was like, I'm not having any of this. I'm under arrest, blah, blah, blah. His story has sort of gone worldwide. So, for people, this is what lawyers are sort of seeking about the immigration world. If you are a visa holder, now's not the time to travel, because every time you travel, you subject yourself to inspection, and they might go through your phone. They could go through your computer. They can make any assertions they want to make, and you're out. And if you're out, it's hard to get you back in, right? That's part of the story that is really difficult. And the Supreme Court has basically said that in their last hearing, that if you're removed from the United States, it's really difficult to get you back in. That's just a fact. If you're a green card holder, now is not the time for leisurely travel. If you were involved in any statements against Trump, if that's who you are in life or in general, that you've got these anti-Trump statements, you're going to protest, you're going to rallies, you work towards getting other people elected in this campaign, and you're a green card holder, why would you subject yourself to being potentially removed from the United States and your green card being assessed? If you're a green card holder and you've been a green card holder long enough to naturalize, then you should go for naturalization. That's just clear as day, an easy sort of have. If you are a United States citizen and you're involved or your life is surrounded around things that are against this administration, when you travel, you should make sure that what you're traveling with, your effects, are something that you don't mind someone searching, because as you travel, even as a U.S. citizen, even as a lawyer, those things are open to being searched and sort of understood and taken to do whatever they want to do with that information in that capacity. So it is a brand new world.
It's a brand new world. It's a terrifying world. On this show, we do not intend to, trigger anybody's anxiety or to peddle in outrage. We're not trying to drive up your cortisol levels here. But we have Alan here with us, and intend to have Alan with us here more frequently to offer a trusted voice, right, to offer up an expert voice, so that you yourself can make the best possible decisions for your family, for your safety, because this is nothing to play with, right? Again, the fact that I, Nii-Quartelai Quartey, somebody who proudly, has a Ghanaian name, right? I have visited Ghana. I've never lived in Ghana. I'm an American citizen. And the fact that some rogue staff person in our government, could take it upon themselves to hold me up, to potentially send me away somewhere, and figure out all the facts later. If that is what's on my mind, I know it's on the mind of so many other people out there. When we come forward more with Alan Orr, separating the fact from the fiction on the immigration front. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered about issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, you've tuned into the right place. A More Perfect Union continues when we come forward.
I'm Esther Dillard with 4 things you should know from BIN News. More than a dozen students who've been attending Louisiana universities are losing their educational visas. 7 attend HBCU Southern University. A school spokeswoman says they weren't given a reason for the revocations. United Airlines is planning to cut flights this summer as domestic travel demands fall. The Chicago-based carrier said today it plans to trim domestic capacity by about 4% starting in the third quarter. New York City's Black Mayor Eric Adams visited the Dominican Republic Monday to pay his respects to those who died during last week's nightclub roof collapse. Mayor Adams visited the site of the tragedy, flanked by members of his staff and Dominican officials, offering his support to victims' families. And on this date, former Chicago Mayor Harold Washington, the city's first Black mayor, was born. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Cerritos, we're heading out to the drive on the 605. This is northbound at South Street. Middle lanes are blocked due to a stalled car. Delays away from Spring Street. Earlier Big Rig fire is out in the Sepulveda Pass. 405 southbound past Skirball Center, but their cleanup continues, and that drive is a mess away from the 101. Also, Highland Park, crash wrapping up 110 south before Avenue 43, blocking the right lane. Delays from Marmion. And Ontario, this is the 10 eastbound before Vineyard. Stalled out Big Rig, 3 left lanes blocked. Delays from Gary Avenue. They hope to have that out of lanes by 5 o'clock.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Today is Jackie Robinson Day in Major League Baseball. On this day, 78 years ago, April 15, 1947, Robinson played for the Brooklyn Dodgers to become Major League Baseball's first black player. A major shout out to the Capital One Corporation. While the Trump administration is trying to bully institutions to get rid of their diversity initiatives, Capital One is maintaining its support for the Jackie Robinson Foundation. The credit card giant has a walk-off program where the company donates $1,000 for every game-winning hit in a Major League game. Capital One has donated over $1 million since the program started in 2022. That's an average of $3 $334,000 a year for Robinson's Foundation. Capital One is promoting its walkout program for this season. In spite of the rhetoric coming out of the White House, diversity initiatives are doing very well at Capital One and Major League Baseball. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, this is Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and for over 20 years, Parkside Economic Development Corporation has served Leimert Park and surrounding communities, empowering tomorrow's leaders and changing lives. Parkside EDC has awarded over $400,000 in college scholarships while sharing economic principles of the Big Five of money with students and their families. Parkside EDC partners with organizations like the Brotherhood Crusade to assure our youth have the financial acumen to succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
At Providence, health equity is the foundation of our community health initiatives, ensuring care reaches those who need it most. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in America. African Americans face a higher risk of life-threatening issues like hypertension, the number one cause of stroke. 55% of Black adults have high blood pressure. The good news is 80% of heart disease is preventable with healthy lifestyle changes and patient-centered care provided by the Providence Heart and Vascular Institute. From routine screenings to advanced procedures, Providence provides comprehensive care for the heart conditions that overly impact our community by ensuring patients receive treatments tailored to their needs. Let's stop the trend of being 30% more likely to die from heart-related problems. Take charge of your heart health with world-class cardiologists who deliver the compassionate care you deserve. Visit providence.org/SoCalHeart. That's providence.org/SoCalHeart to request an appointment.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Nii-Quartelai Quartey, not Nicholas Quinn, although talking to Andy, my sound engineer, he said after what Alan just shared, you might want to change your name. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's always important that we are in the know of what we're up against. Speaking of what we're up against, NBC News reporting that the Democratic lawmakers, they say that they're going to travel to El Salvador to push for Kilmar Abrego Garcia's release. Democratic lawmakers led by Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland said that they're willing to go to El Salvador to seek the release of a man whom the Justice Department says is mistakenly deported there, a plan that has gained steam after the country's president said during a visit to the White House that he would not send the man back to the United States. Alan, what can these senators do? Is this just a stunt or can they actually do something?
So there are a couple of things, right? I mean, I think that everything with regards to someone traveling somewhere is stunt related, but what they're doing is they're keeping the light on it, right? They're making people see them. They're making the media follow the story to the end of saying they're doing something. So two things in the thought pattern. The first one I want to say before is I don't think people were scared enough by the way people voted or did not vote in the last election to show up. We're in a different time frame. So yeah, people should be on notice. And specifically with regards to this travel situation and being outside the United States and inside the United States, it's a very real and honest conversation people need to have, because if you're having the conversation after you've been detained at the border or your green card's detained, it's too late, right? Because it takes a long time to get a green card. It is not easy to reproduce. And if they deport you for a reason, then they're probably not going to allow you to get back into the system, right? Because they're going to be keying that stuff in. And we've seen them remove people who had green cards for 30 years, 40 years, or women and children who've been here for 20 to 25 years, right? Recently in the last couple of weeks. So that's A. B, just because you're in the minority doesn't mean you don't have a voice. And why they can't pass the rules, one of the concerns that tons of individual has is, well, where are the Democrats in this? Where is Vice President Harris in this? Where's the former president in this? Where are the former presidents in this? Why is our government not working? And that's the issue that we have right now, because we have 3 branches of government and they all come from the same Constitution. And right now the executive branch is doing the job of the executive branch and also the legislative branch and making the laws and executing the laws. And they want to take over the judiciary. The judiciary, in order to remain in effect, needs to give more pushback than Congress is. And the way that we can make Congress get pushback is to make people show up to these town halls, right? Also today, there were 2 town halls in which constituents in very Republican jurisdictions, Grassley's and Mitch McConnell's, showed up and asked them, why is this individual not being returned? This is not right? Because the individual is not a member of MS-13. There's no proof of it. He has 2 stepchildren and 1 autistic child that is born here and a U.S. citizen wife. And people want to know why, because they can say, if that happens to them, that could happen to me, or that could happen to my friend Bubba, and that's not okay.
That's not okay. And you know what else is not okay is how we have treated the asylum system in this country for too long. NPR reporting that Trump moves to speed up asylum cases without court hearings. The Trump administration is moving to fast track cases in immigration court by allowing judges to drop, quotes, legally deficient asylum cases without a hearing. The change in policy, it was laid out in an April 11th memo sent to the Executive Office for Immigration Review. Alan, talk to us about what impact this may have on the future of immigration in this country and around the world if the United States is moving to fast track these cases in immigration court without a hearing.
Okay, so I think there's a couple of things. Rapid deportation doesn't solve for people being here undocumented, specifically because we don't have the money and the resources to remove 11 million people. So part of this is theater, right? Because even if you sort of look at the numbers last month, they were the same as President Biden's, but an exorbitant cost more in billions of dollars. And that's one of the things that we're sort of looking to track. We need the government. That's what Congress really should have hearings about, is how much money is being spent to remove these individuals, right? How many thousands and thousands of dollars extra it would have cost to just give them something to eat and a place to work and a visa or some kind of temporary work visa and ask them to remove, like ending TPS, causing all these companies to say TPS is ended, temporary protective status, or TPS is extended for the same group of people, this back and forth sort of matrix, the cost of that, the cost of these military planes, right? All of that cost adds up. The cost of sending people to the border when there's no issue at the border right now, because there are already rules in place during the Biden administration that pull down the number of people who are crossing. And also at the same time, not speaking about people who are overstaying their visas, which until the last 5 years was the main reason people came to the United States and were here undocumented, because they got in on the visa and they overstayed their visa. And there was no follow-up on that. So this conversation that's saying, oh, we're fixing for undocumented immigration is not complete unless you're fixing for everything. What they're fixing for are Black and brown immigrants and poor immigrants coming up from a certain area of the United States. That's one. Two, while we're talking about the people who were sent to El Salvador, we should talk about the Africans and the Asians that were sent to Panama, who are sitting in the middle of a desert somewhere, well, jungle, without the appropriate food and health care, who are third-party nationals that the United States sent there and said, Panama, here, you deal with this, right? The news has been very weak with regards to pointing to those individuals and following up on their stories when they had asylum claims. Asylum is a law that was passed by Congress. If this country doesn't want to do asylum anymore, then Congress should pass a law saying we're not doing asylum anymore. The executive branch doesn't get to say, oh my God, it's too many asylums, or we're not doing asylum anymore. That's not their job. Nor can the court say, we're not doing asylum anymore. We're just going to stop doing asylum. Make Congress do what Congress is supposed to do, which is to pass an immigration bill, which they won't do because no person from Congress is going to stand and say people can't come. Because if they can't come, that means The Jewish person might not be able to come. The South African people that this White House gave a fast card to won't be able to come. So it isn't about immigration. It's about a certain type of immigrants. And that's what all the policy sort of speaks to when we sort of see this enforcement and these removal places. Because we've seen one scientist from Paris and one person from Ireland, but we haven't seen the big deportation planes going back to Europe yet or taking them to El Salvador.
That's right. You can double click on that. And you know, keep us honest. If somebody saw a plane head over to Europe, you know, get in the YouTube More Perfect group chat. We want to hear from you. Alan, the Washington Post reported this exclusively. DOJ is collecting federal data to remove immigrants from housing and jobs. For folks who are a little less familiar, the Trump administration is using personal data, normally protected from the dissemination, to find undocumented immigrants where they work, where they study, where they live, often with the goal of removing them from their housing and the workforce. At the Department of Housing and Urban Development, for example, officials are working on a rule that would ban mixed status households, very much like the household I grew up in. My mom is American. My father was Ghanaian. Would ban mixed status households and from public.
But in that case, a little bit different though, because your father was documented. So someone who's undocumented and with someone who's documented is what they call mixed family. But just
point taken. But that's what they're looking to do in public housing, according to a number of staffers speaking on conditions of anonymity. You know, this seems like it is getting not just bad before it gets better, but it's getting awful before there's any signs of anything getting better.
Well, so let's talk about the practicalities of this, right? Because the Trump administration promised that they were going to buckle down on crime and they were going to deport the worst of the worst. And, you know, I'm an immigration lawyer. Deportation is part of the system. Some people should be detained, right? That is part of the law and order in this country. There are a certain group of individuals who should be detained because they are a risk to society. But just like with drug offenses, being undocumented in itself does not make you a risk to society. If you want to get the person who's a risk to society, then get the person who's distributing the drugs, right? Go top, go higher than the person who's actually just using the drugs. Don't put them and penalize them for that sort of stake. It is weird to me that you want to go to these communities where these individuals have jobs, probably jobs that Americans don't want to do, are difficult for Americans to find. Remove them from those communities where they're paying taxes, where they're paying mortgages, where they're paying rent, and where they may live in a mixed family, right? Because in a mixed family, if you were born here, your parents are Mexican, you were born here, doesn't mean you get to go back to Mexico automatically. Or if you're married to someone who's undocumented, doesn't mean you get to go to their country automatically, right? It just that concept is weird to me, of saying, oh, well, you can just go be with the deported person if you're a child. Every country doesn't work that way, right? In the long stretch of things. And why would you want to go through the process of removing somebody at that expense when they're adding to the United States and they've been here for so long? There's an equity argument that President Reagan understood and many Republicans before him understood, that said, if you were contributing to the United States and you've been here, we didn't do anything about you, then we should make it right by us to, if not give you a pathway to citizenship, then let you be unbothered. Right. And that's part of what happened in Mr. Garcia's case, was saying, OK, you didn't do everything the right way. You weren't in this gang. But if you go back to this country, this gang's probably going to come after you. We don't do that here. We don't send people back to certain death, and we don't imprison people for a lifetime. So ask ourselves this question. If the Trump administration is willing to take 253 people who somebody may have a final judge, somebody may have a final order of removal, and probably 50 to 60% of those cases were done in absentia, meaning the person was not in court because they did not get the hearing. The court didn't notify them. There was no defense. There was no trial. And just say, okay, you're all guilty, and put them in detention for life. It's one thing to deport somebody to a country. It's another thing to remove somebody and put them in a prison for life. Those are very different standards, and that's very different than who we have been in the past.
And to do so without any due process. I mean, that is wild. You know, just to put it differently, there are companies that we belong to, there are organizations that we belong to, where being an employee, being a member, you have more rights to due process as an employee than you do as an American citizen, based upon how this White House is moving. and the lack of pushback they are getting from our Congress. This is serious stuff.
And we need to hear from Republicans as well. I mean, I don't know a Republican. Part of my question for the midterm will be for the Republican Party. What did you do to stand up for your people that was against Trump? Were you just saying how high to jump? Because if that's what you're doing, we don't really need you there, right? Because you're supposed to be representing your constituency. And in your constituency for our state of Alabama, we lost all these research dollars. We lost all these jobs. We lost all this housing. Tell me specifically how that helped Alabama and what you're cheering about necessarily right now, right? You're cheering about this coal. Well, all these people have cancer. All these people are dying. Tell me again what that's supposed to. Oh, you're going to bring factories back here. Well, who's going to work in those factories? We're not training for factory jobs anymore. It's not the 1950s anymore. So romanticizing that concept that you're bringing factories back when nobody wants to go work in a jean factory or a clothing factory or a furniture factory because the conditions were horrible, the pay was bad, and you didn't really work out. Well, that's the problem. Because when we think about what we export in this tariff conversation, hopefully people have researched and know that we do more intellectual property exporting than anyone else in the world.
That's right.
Our companies, our Facebook, our Instagram, what we manage, how we operate a higher level of elevation, evolution in a sense of how we do all of our movies, our TV shows, all those things. We basically control the footprint of the world with regards to entertainment. Everybody looks to Hollywood. Everybody wants to be here. Everybody wants to be in our movie. There is no other country that can compete with us. Even India with their Bollywood is nothing like our Hollywood.
Yeah, we are a knowledge economy, but for some reason we have purchased wolf tickets to an economy of yesteryear, right? I mean, and the fact that folks actually are falling for this is beyond me. Alan, in the remaining minute that we have you, I also know, in addition to being a highly sought out immigration attorney, you are a proud Morehouse man. And it was just announced that Dr. Cornel West will be delivering the commencement this year.
Is he doing the commencement? I thought he just did a speech. He's doing both? Okay, I didn't know.
I mean, I read commencement, but being that it is commencement season, Alan, I want to ask you, what's your advice to commencement speakers who, might try to sidestep any statements around immigration to be a polite guest? What advice would you offer them?
Woo, that's a difficult one because I don't know how Mr. West will be received at Morehouse in this climate. So I am a philosophy major. I should say that in full freight. And I love many things about Dr. West. Basically, the way he thinks about things is pragmatic way of doing things. But I think, it's a difficult time to sort of give a commencement address because now it's a time where people are going to have to fight for everything they want. There are institutions who are basically buckling under and companies that are buckling under to the executive branch of our government when they're private held companies. So the question is going to be the one that faced many of the people who graduated in the 50s and the 60s. What are you going to do for yourself? And what type of world you want to live in? What is your vision of what this country is? And because so many people set out the last election thinking there were these guardrails that were going to protect us, well, the guardrails only work if you're holding them up. And if you don't do the work of voting, then the guardrails are not going to work. And in less than 100 days, think about how different this country looks. And part of that conversation that you asked me earlier is tourists aren't even coming here anymore from friendly countries, right? Tourism is a big dollar maker for the United States. So I think it needs to be look within yourself, and it's time to realize if you don't do something to make this world better, then it won't get any better, and you'll be a product of whatever the result is, right? I mean, I think one of the things that we used to ask ourselves at Morehouse is what would we have done during the civil rights movement? And we say, oh, we would have marched, we would have done this, we wouldn't have done that, we would have done, and you would have done during the civil rights movement exactly what you're doing today because it's the exactly same type of argument that's happening right now. So if you're going to work and paying your bills and thinking someone else is going to save you, that's exactly what you would have been doing in the 50s and the 60s.
Amen to that. Dr. Cornel West is delivering the keynote address at Morehouse. Their 141st commencement on May 18th, celebrating the class of 2025. Alan Orr, you're a saint. Thank you so much for being here for what you do. Y'all, if you have any immigration needs, be sure to check out Orr Immigration Law Firm. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Joe Montaigne. Let's talk about veteran homelessness, because it's not just a housing issue, it's a human issue. Right now, we need LA property owners to open their doors and give veterans a safe place to call home. With guaranteed rent and dedicated support, you can be part of the solution. Learn how you can help. Email houseourvets@lacity.org.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number and put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We face tragedy, but we don't fall into despair. We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and it's about that time for the quiet part out loud. Have you all seen some of the interviews that Melinda French Gates has been doing recently? Melinda Gates, as in now the ex-wife of one of the richest men in the world, Bill Gates. Well, she said something related to her new book, The Next Day, Transitions, Change, and Moving Forward, that really caught my attention. And it was also reported at NPR. Melinda Gates, she reflected on seismic shifts, not just the end of her marriage to Bill Gates or the reinvention of her public life, but the deeply personal evolution that came from those transitions. And she, in the book, takes readers inside the moments that defined her, becoming a mom, grieving the loss of her best friend, and grappling with hard-earned lessons of philanthropy. She said, quotes, "I mistakenly thought that philanthropy could change things more than it could." She went on to say, "I didn't realize that it takes philanthropy in concert with civil society and government, massive government funding to change things. And if you really want to affect children's lives around the world and get vaccines out, that takes enormous government funding. Philanthropy cannot do it on its own. If you want to affect maternal health around the world, you really have to have philanthropy again taking on the experiments, trying things, figuring out what works, doing that research, but then it really takes government funding to scale those things up." I thought that was so insightful and so very important. I know there are a number of our leaders, learners, and listeners that work in philanthropy. I think there are a lot of people that participate in one form or another in philanthropy, whether it's with your family, it's in your community, it's in your church. But we recognize that we can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. And we also have got to recognize that it's our government. It's not somebody else's government. It's not the pocket change of the rich and powerful. This is our government. It belongs to all of us, not some of us. And anything that belongs to you, you should treat it with care. Anything that belongs to you, you should probably pay attention to it. And that's why each and every day we recommit ourselves to providing you with news and information that you can use to keep your family safe, to be aware of what's happening now, what's coming down the pike, and news and information, more importantly, that helps you to do your part to help build a more perfect union. We can't do it alone. Philanthropy can't do it alone. Government can't do it alone. It takes all of us. And so many thanks to Melinda French Gates for reminding us of that very important fact. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Comedian Michael Collier joins us in our next hour. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Esther Dillard with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Democratic leaders across the country will be holding town halls to highlight the threat they believe Republicans pose to Social Security. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who is Black, held a news conference in New York saying the program is under threat of privatization. Oakland, California voters will decide who will be their next new mayor. Top candidates are